So first of all, how are you two doing as musicians and individual musicians during the pandemic? And maybe you can also talk a little bit about how the society has been doing during the pandemic and give us an update on that.
Well, individually, it's been quite an experience and a longer one than I think any of us anticipated when we all sort of shut things down last March.
Yeah,
Hard to believe that we're really up to a year of living this way. I know that when I taught my last few lessons in person at Eastman last spring, I thought, okay, well, this is what we have to do. And I'm sure by the fall, I'll be seeing all of my students. And of course, that wasn't the case. So I think we've all adjusted a lot. Um, but there have been a lot of positives as well. I certainly have gotten to know my students in a different way in this setting. The orchestra, the RPO, has really come up with some creative ways to perform. We're thankful to be doing that. And then, of course, our baby, SCMR, it's been really exciting to come up with really creative ways to present performances that we might not think of or go to the extent to try these new things
right.
if it were business as usual. I'm sure Erik can tell us more about it.
Yeah, I mean, from an individual perspective, I would say it's been a struggle for a lot of musicians and artists because, creating in a vacuum is one thing if you're a writer, that's what you do. But when you're a performing musician, very difficult to feel the motivation and to feel that connection with the audience. You can call it gratification, you can call it, positive reinforcement, but there's a very real connection that we feel when we're performing. And I think it's been really difficult for people to play to the camera, to play to the Zoom things. Really hard. It gives me a lot of appreciation for TV reporters who have to stare at a screen and a camera their whole life. And I think in a way it's been a new skill to learn how to flip the switch a little bit with that, that it's a different skill that we've done. And how do we suddenly get ourselves from sitting at home in our pajamas, and then now you go into work, and not only is there no audience, but you're in basically a recording atmosphere, which we've all done a lot of. But when you do recordings, you approach it slightly different than a performance, but these are sort of these live captures. So it's this weird hybrid of you're playing a live concert, but it's being recorded.
Right.
And like I said, you've got to get out of your PJs and put pants with, a zipper on. So it's a very different environment, just from a psychological perspective, I think, for us. And I think there's probably been some really good that's come out of it in terms of reaching audiences far away that we didn't do before. A lot of people, of course, up here in Rochester this time of the year are down in Florida having a wonderful time golfing. But we've been able to keep our connection with them. And for the society, the same thing there too.
Right.
The people that move away, the snowbirds. So that's been a really great thing. And I think we're all looking at how can we continue along with that in conjunction with collective bargaining and union rules and all of that. But how can we continue that really good thing? And then, as Juliana said, from a very personal perspective with the RPO, we also had a change at the top. We had our music director bow out very gracefully, and the new one that we had hired was able to step right in. And it's been an amazing sort of lab experience, sort of a time that you wouldn't normally have with the music director, where people have been able to work very closely and intimately without worrying about ticketing and the programs that have to sell, right?
Right.
We've been lucky that it's been a wonderful time to get to know each other between the conductor and the orchestra. So from a Society for Chamber Music perspective, it's been really interesting how the model is different. So the model has driven how we have approached this. We have kept paying our musicians and everyone in the payroll. We have kept that, and it's been an incredibly supportive display from our board, from our donors, from the community. We're very lucky to be in a city like Rochester and have the society that's been around for 44 years of people that are still involved, that were involved in the beginning. So there's a lot of love there, which has been incredible. And then within the community of Rochester, we've had incredible partnerships that have sprung up during this time. Because we haven't been able to get a revenue for selling tickets, we've done these concerts for free. It was really important to try and book into venues that we'd have cross-marketing and be able to not be charged for rent. And so we're very lucky. George Eastman Museum was the first one, the Memorial Art Gallery. And now, just a few days ago, we did one at the planetarium, which Juliana will tell you about, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I was planning on getting to that later as
Yeah.
well.
And
But
getting to know these different institutions has been fantastic too, because a lot of the people that would go to these museums and the George Eastman Museum, and these are very much our demographic, and maybe they didn't know about music beforehand, but now they're getting a free and no pressure scenario to enjoy a concert. So they can be at home. They can be sitting in their pajamas, and there's none of that fear of, am I clapping in the wrong time? How the protocol and all that stuff has been broken down. And I'm hoping that we come out of this with a bigger base of people through these partnerships locally than we had before. And I hope it's the same for them too. I hope a lot of our people have reignited their love for George Eastman Museum, Memorial Art Gallery, and the planetarium. So it's been a really nice collaboration with a lot of local organizations that we would never have done this with before, and doing it in spaces where we didn't have to worry about how do we fit an audience of 250. We could do it anywhere we wanted. So it's been really great.
I think, with taking away our audiences, at least as we're used to experiencing them right in there with us, in front of us, it does help you to just really refocus on only what you're doing in that moment. I think when you're performing, there's so much happening in your mind. You're, of course, focused on the music and interacting with your colleagues, but there are also people there, they've come to a concert, they want entertainment, and ideally we just invite them into what we're doing. But I think it's been in some ways easier to have that focus when it's just us musicians on stage. There's a real commitment to what can we create here? And it's pretty inspiring to feel that the lack of an audience doesn't make us feel, more relaxed or less focused. It almost heightens those things because we feel that we're just doing this for the art. And in a way, we know that in capturing these performances, we need it to literally jump off the screen. Well, I guess only figuratively. It probably doesn't literally jump off. But we're hoping that people watching from home will have those similar feelings that they have when they're with us. And so we're all experiencing that on stage, and it's really our job to communicate that. So I have loved the ability to just kind of maybe dig a little deeper with the things that we're always focused on. But when life is happening, everyone's running from one concert to the next, to rehearsing, to teaching. And I think we all have a real appreciation for what it is that we get to do, especially because so many of our colleagues have lost it for the time being. We have a lot of colleagues who are not able to perform right now. Yeah. And even for those of us who are performing, it's so different that, I don't think we'll ever go back to, oh yeah, I've got a concert tonight. I think it's going to be a very long time when we get back to having audiences. It's going to really feel so thrilling for a long time to be able to share that with people. So as Erik said earlier, I think there's a lot of things that we've gained in this time that we will keep moving forward. Some of that is the emotion that the performers feel, but I also think we've learned so much, all of us, about presenting virtually and how many people we can reach. Of course, people that don't live near us. How about people in our own community who aren't able to come to concerts? Yeah. There's just so many people that we can share what I consider to be a really healing art form. And that has been eye-opening and rewarding, even if we can't have audiences in the hall with us. I mean, that's definitely what we've been experiencing, right? We're performing with the RPO and SCMR with no audience. So that's the challenge, I think, that musicians are experiencing. But it also, the quiet of that, literally and figuratively, kind of allows you to do a more internal search of like, why is this important, and why do I need to express this? And I think it just takes us to a deeper level as musicians, and we're all in this together, experiencing something that I hope we never experience again in our lives. But it's certainly something that really brings us all together, because I think it's a certainly national and internationally shared experience of kind of that, a bit of loneliness that everyone experiences. And how can we use what we do to break through that for people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, even on this upcoming concert at the Planetarium, we're featuring Adolphus Hailstork, who is a Rochester-born Black composer. And I think it's just so important when we can to go local, right? We're all in this search and effort to, amplify all voices and really make sure that our artistic institutions represent the diversity of the community around us. And so that's a big goal of ours with composers and performers. Looking ahead, some things that we would definitely love to do that have been, I would say, definitely restricted because of COVID. Vocal chamber music is a huge one. So we're looking into all the different kinds of repertoire that we've really been missing that we could do. And as with any arts organization, we've probably got a couple different plans going at once, because we've got to have, here are the things we can definitely do. Here are the things we can hopefully do. And here are the things we really want to do as soon as it's possible. And I would say that in a way, the break from our conventional programming and performing this season has almost recharged our batteries and reinvigorated our thought process for looking ahead, because it was probably right around the time that we would have been finalizing our brochure for this season that we found out last season, okay, wait a minute, it's not going to be business as usual. And we thought about, should we put this out? And if we have to cancel things, we will. Well, now we're glad that we made the call. No, we're going to do something totally different. And pressing pause on that kind of allows us to go back to all of the things maybe that we had thought about programming normally for this year and future years. Erik and I always keep a running tab of pieces either that we hear or perform somewhere and think, oh, we've got to do that for SCMR. So we've got a database of everything we have done over the past 44 years and all the kind of wish list pieces. What did we just hear? We heard Shepherd on the Rock in the car the other day and thought, oh, wouldn't that be great? Of course, it's for a singer. So there are a lot of possibilities in the works. I wouldn't say we've committed to anything yet. It seems every month that goes by, more about what we're dealing with. So even right now, it would feel premature to have a definitive plan for September, which is why I would say we've got probably a few irons in the fire.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting change in how audiences go to concerts and plan on going to concerts, right? People used to buy these full season subscriptions to their symphony, to their opera. And that's changing. People want more flexibility. They want more a menu of options. And so we've gone that way too a few years ago. And it seems with this, it's even more spur of the moment in a way. I think it's really great to have a brochure you can put on your fridge and you can check like, when's the next concert? Great, fine. But I do think audiences are much more forgiving to say, we're going to put on a really good concert, but we're not going to really finalize it or tell you where or when until about a month before. And that's the world that we're living in now. We'd like a little longer time than that, obviously. But I think people are more flexible now with their concert going. They're more used to immediate notifications, pop-up ideas, and kind of exciting stuff like that.
Restaurants were doing that for a long time, right? A pop-up, like, oh my gosh, we can go check this out. And I think that is maybe one of the advantages we've gained in learning through this time that, yes, people love to plan ahead, but at this point, people are so hungry for experiences that, we can spend time behind the scenes planning something. And maybe we're going to tell you, hey, next weekend, we've got this awesome concert. We've only got room for this many people. And by the way, because of that, we're probably going to continue the streaming, right? If you can't come to us, we'll bring it to you. But for those of you who can come, here's what we're doing. Of course, as the weather improves, that opens a lot more possibilities for outdoor gathering.
It almost sounds like we've got something planned. Weird. Maybe.
What about other ideas in regards to, are there any new venues that you're thinking about, especially for future seasons to come?
Yeah, there are. There certainly are. And that's been the other advantage, just to go back to what Juliana was saying, having this little break, especially with the amount of social awareness and change that's going on in this country and around the world, It's given us a lot of time to go back and listen to composers like Adolphus Hailstork and others that have been overlooked for a long time. And that's been really powerful. And so really, really interesting. And I think everybody's doing that right now and just trying to make sure everybody gets a fair shot in a good way. So that's been really great. And the other thing is, let's look at different venues. I mean, we've been kind of searching for a home a little bit. We've had some really fun venues, but
it's hard to find one that kind of ticks all the boxes, right? We can find great acoustics, but maybe we don't have great parking, or we can find a location that we love, but maybe the acoustic isn't as great, or, you know, so we've had a lot of iterations over the years of finding the right kind of combo. There have been some promising explorations as of late.
Very promising. There's a new art center that was built a few short years ago at Nazareth. Very interesting hall there, great parking. And I think we're excited to try that out. We haven't really played a lot in there, so we don't know about the acoustics, but they have an incredible ability to change from like 0-second reverb to like a 3-second reverb. There's a lot of technology there that can help. So that'll be cool. And then there's a new venue opening up downtown, in fact, which we're really excited about. We've been chatting with the people who are running it, and we're actually going to go tomorrow for another little walk around. It's the Xerox Auditorium in the Xerox complex. People will remember it from 20, 30 years ago when concerts used to be there. I think it could be a really great venue, great parking situation. I think the acoustic is really good. So
there's a restaurant downstairs.
So I think, I think we're all looking for the concert to be, like Juliana was saying, more of an experience than purely coming to a concert. So people are expecting more now. Like, I'm going to come to a concert, but I'm also going to have dinner. And maybe the concert doesn't need to be 2.5 hours. Maybe we have an hour concert, depending on a time that works for people. Like maybe 6 o'clock on a Friday, and you come and you
like a commuter concert,
So I think we're looking more
happy hour,
happy cocktail and classics, things like that. I think that we're seen as, are we gonna make it uncomfortable for our subscriber base? I think now we've realized no, we've been putting ourselves in these boxes as programming people, and we need to just let it go. Absolutely. We've done that a lot with our blues and Baroque and blues concert, where it doesn't have to be exactly in the classical genre. It can be a lot of different things. And I think we've really gotten a great reception for that. So I also think there's been an experience for people at home listening to different kinds of music. I'm hopeful that people are going to be more open to different experiences with other humans.
But the idea that, we're creating these one-off experiences. We've long touted that SCMR creates this really great combination between, Eastman and RPO players. And it is kind of the one place that you can hear those two forces come together. Right. So that's really exciting. But I think beyond that, it's got to be, oh, wow, I haven't ever been to a concert there, or I haven't been in that building for decades. I'd love to see what's going on. So there's just a lot of reasons to try it out, especially if we're doing premieres or we're doing music that hasn't been played in Rochester. We can check what's been happening. And if people feel like there's a reason to come besides, of course, we hope they trust us that we're going to have good musicians playing good music. But if we can go beyond that, I think we have even more loyalty and intrigue. We've got such a loyal base of subscribers. The idea for us now is to really crack the door a little wider for people who maybe have been lurking but haven't tried us out yet. I hope that they'll feel like, oh, wow, there is something for everyone, especially if they've tried us out in this virtual year. They may be more inclined to say, okay, I trust them. I'm going to see what they've got going on next season and beyond.
So every year we have a composer competition, and we've been alternating high school, college. We're thinking maybe going more towards the college because there are just so many submissions from college students throughout the state. And we've had some fantastic works and great young composers. A few years ago, we started looking at it saying, well, what we're doing here is having this competition, and let's say the winning piece is 5 saxophones and a bagpipe. Well, that's great. But what you do then is you kind of limit the rest of the concert by the musicians that you use for that winning piece.
And it's hard to find a lot of pieces for 5 saxophones and 1 bagpipe.
Surprisingly.
2 bagpipes, no problem, but it's the one.
So they like to perform in pairs, apparently. So we got in touch with Don Hansberger. He said, well, let's work with the Eastman Hansen Institute. And so he got some funding where we are now using musicians from the Eastman School of Music, and we're paying them as professionals to be on the series. So the idea behind that was to free us up selfishly for our programming so we can, go different directions with the rest of the program. But we also wanted to foster a relationship between a younger composer and younger musicians, because we've noticed that a lot of the composers we worked with early in our life kind of stay with you. And when you get a little older and perhaps someone wants to, commission something for you, you remember like, oh, I remember playing with this really cool composer when I was at Eastman. And so these relationships have to foster. Not only that, but educationally too, the composer helps the musician helps the composer, right? You know this. I mean, you have to play the music. Not everything is going to be Mozart. You have to get through a lot of Salieri. And a lot of the time, you've got to help that composer become more of a Mozart.
And the other advantage to it, Erik was mentioning freeing ourselves up, that we could have this piece exist and then do completely different programming, which I think only supports hearing that piece in a really fresh way. We also found that, as anyone knows who's worked on new music, a piece that hasn't been performed before deserves and needs time, right? It's a living thing that grows and becomes more familiar. And so by creating this situation where this group of students was only tasked with working on this one piece, it was only to the benefit of the composer and the piece. And, when we had our group of professionals who were also preparing an entire other program, they had to divvy up their time. And so I think it's just only strengthened, this idea. And the composers feel really excited. They feel like, really, if I win this, I'm going to have a dedicated group working on my piece, and they often speak at the concert, talk about their piece. And it's just really a phenomenal symbiosis that I think probably not enough people in New York State know about. We know there's a bunch of great college composers, and we want to hear your music.
The other thing we want to do is have a lot of the outreach opportunity that we do these outreach concerts that can be at, senior living centers, but we do a lot in the schools. We do a lot both in suburban schools and urban schools. And a lot of emphasis on the urban schools, just getting in front of kids as young an age as we can. I mean, we're all looking to see how do we grow diversity in our field. And we feel really passionate the way to do it is to get to kids at 5 or 6 or 7 years old. Because you can pluck any member out of any board on any symphony orchestra or opera and say, why are you on this board? Why do you care? And I guarantee you 99% will say, I remember going to the concert with my mom and my dad when I was 5 or 6, and I heard this piece and I was hooked for life. And they go on and become bankers and whatever, but they love music. And that passion is what we need to get to the kids, especially in the city, that don't have the means to get to us. We've got to get to them, and early and often. And so that's a big thing that we're pushing, as we always have. We're pushing it even harder now.
Just having the exposure, right? Like, it's phenomenal to see. Kids don't have to learn to enjoy music or art. They have an experience, they have a response to it. So just getting it to them is so great. And, the Solov Quartet, who's going to perform on our Celestial performance at the planetarium, have been such great representatoves of the society, and they really have run the gamut. They've played, for little school age children all the way up to octogenarians. So I really think there's a way to connect with everyone. And we have to show people that music is something that you need in your life, right?